The slap boomed through the courtroom like thunder. A white patrolman's palm smacked a black judge's face before 40 witnesses, 12 cameras, and a stenographer who forgot to breathe. Officer Trevor Branham froze. Judge Marcus Varela touched his cheek. In that single violent instant, 2 decades of buried complaints, doctored paperwork, and silenced families burst into view. Follow this case to the end, and drop your city below. Let's watch how far this justice tale travels. Morning on September 15th settled heavy over Jefferson County's courthouse. Limestone steps, polished by generations seeking remedy, gleamed under a punishing sun that promised revelations. Inside courtroom 7, the air struggled against heat and weeks of compounding tension. Judge Marcus Varela adjusted his robe, readying for what should have been routine. The trial of 19-year-old Jalen Thompson, detained for suspicious behavior near a convenience store. Nothing about this hearing would be routine, not with Officer Branham testifying. The gallery brimmed with reporters, organizers, and families whose stories had long been buried. Varela, 55, the county's first black judge, carried silver at his temples from nights spent with case law, while colleagues golfed at selective clubs. All rise, the bailiff announced, though most were already upright, pulled by a current of anticipation, the Honorable Judge Marcus Varela presiding. He sat with measured grace, knowing every gesture mattered, and swept the room with calm, assessing eyes. Third row, Mrs. Patrice Thompson clutched a tortured tissue. Behind her, 3 Tribune reporters leaned forward, laptops poised. Along the back wall, law students observed, told their professor this hearing might teach more than any textbook could hope to. Please be seated, Varela said, his authority earned, not assumed. We're here in State versus Jalen Thompson, case number 2824, CR 147. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Chu rose, talented and new, yet uncharacteristically nervous, shuffling pages that shouldn't have needed shuffling. Your Honor, Chu began, the state calls Officer Trevor Branham. The doors opened with unnecessary force. Branham entered like he owned the place. Uniform razor-pressed, badge-catching fluorescent light, a swagger sharpened by years, without anyone saying no. At 40, he carried himself like trouble barely contained. 6'2" of muscle and impatience, crew cut so tight it pulled his features toward a sneer. Commendations filled his file. Citizen complaints lived elsewhere. Off record, uncounted, conveniently forgotten. He strode past the defense table without acknowledging Jalen Thompson, who instinctively leaned away. Officer Branham, Varela said as the witness took his seat, raise your right hand. The oath was administered. Branham's I do came out like grunt. Cho asked, hands trembling, describe the events of August 3rd, 2024. Branham leaned back, irritation radiating. Simple. I was on patrol in Riverside when I observed the defendant loitering outside Cho's convenience. Objection, defense attorney Martin Willis rose, smiling. Loitering is a legal conclusion, Willis said. Sustained, Varela ruled. Officer, describe what you observed without legal characterizations. Branham's jaw tightened. I saw the defendant standing outside the store. How long? Cho asked. About 30 seconds before contact. 30 seconds, Willis repeated, rising. May I voir dire the witness? Varela nodded. Willis approached, controlled like a boxer waiting his moment. In those 30 seconds, what was he doing? Standing. Blocking the door? No. Harassing customers? Not then. Committing any observable crime? You learn to spot intent, Branham said. So 12 years lets you read minds after 30 seconds of a young man on a public sidewalk? Objection, Cho tried. Overruled, Varela said. He opened the door. Answer. The room cooled. This wasn't how Branham expected it to go. He was accustomed to nodding judges. I know trouble when I see it. What suggested trouble? Willis pressed. His whole demeanor. Be specific. Clothes, posture, his eyes. Willis displayed a still from the store camera. Jalen, skinny 19-year-old in jeans and a tee, standing near but not blocking the entrance, looking at his phone. Show us criminal intent. Branham's knuckles whitened. You had to be there. So the threat you perceived isn't captured in the photo? Pictures don't tell the whole story. Varela leaned forward. Officer, what specific articulable facts led you to believe Mr. Thompson was engaged in crime? The question hung like challenge. Branham stared, with barely concealed contempt, as this black judge questioning him. With respect, Your Honor, you weren't there. You don't know the streets. 10 years as a prosecutor, Varela replied evenly. Plenty of ride-alongs. Try again, with facts, not attitude. The gallery stirred. Mrs. Thompson leaned forward. Reporters typed furiously. Students traded glances. He looked suspicious, Branham said. Based on what? Demeanor, which consists of the way people like. He caught himself too late. Silence stretched, thin and dangerous. People like what, officer? Varela asked, voice very quiet, the kind of quiet before quakes. Chu wanted to disappear. Willis wisely stayed still. I didn't mean. Complete the thought. People loitering in high crime areas, he finished lamely. High crime, Varela repeated. Miss Chow, crime statistics for the blocks around Cho's convenience? She fumbled. I don't have them, Your Honor. Willis smiled. Defense Exhibit B. The monitor showed a 5-year map. Rates 15% below county average. So your high crime zone runs 15% safer than average, Varela said. Explain. Branham's composure frayed. Statistics don't tell everything. Neither, Varela observed, does your testimony. Arrests last year? Approximately 120. Mr. Willis? 127, Willis answered. Of those, 89 black, 23 Hispanic, 15 white, Willis continued. County demographics, 42% white, 31 black, 27 Hispanic, Varela noted. Explain why 70% of your arrests are black citizens when they're 31% of the population. Whispers rippled. Branham flushed deeper. Those are the people committing crimes, he said. All convicted. Cho stood. Your Honor, the officer isn't on trial. His credibility is, Varela said. Convictions. I don't track convictions. The court does, Varela replied. Of 89 arrests of black individuals, 31 dismissed, 22 acquitted, 36 convictions, about 40%. Of 15 white arrests, 13 convictions, 87%. Explain the disparity. The room crackled. Phones recorded despite warnings. Mrs. Thompson cried quiet tears that looked like relief. Maybe black defendants have better lawyers, Branham snapped. Maybe they work the system. Like Mr. Thompson, Willis said. 19, honor student, no record, standing on a public sidewalk. We are examining probable cause and credibility, Varela said. Central issues, counsel. Officer, for the last time, identify specific observable facts justifying the arrest. Branham stood in the box, looming. I don't have to explain myself to you, gasps. The bailiff reached for his radio. Sit down, officer, Varela commanded, voice unshakable. Or what? Branham stepped out of the box. Because you wear a robe? Because they gave you a gavel? You don't know real police work. You're in contempt. Sit. Arrest me. By who? My brothers in blue? You're the problem. People like me? Varela stood slowly, composure intact. Clarify for the record. They faced each other across the well. Black judge contained, white officer, fist clenched rage. You people always protect criminals, Branham spat. You people, Varela repeated, letting the words hang. Let the record reflect, Varela said. The witness used a racial epithet in open court. I said nothing racial, Branham protested, but everyone heard. I'm finding you in contempt, Varela added. Bailiff. Then Branham crossed the well and slapped him. The sound was sharp, undeniable, a crack echoing through history. Varela's head turned. A red bloom spread across his left cheek. Glasses askew, he straightened them. Chaos erupted. The bailiff radioed backup. Reporters stood filming. Through it all, Varela remained still. He touched his cheek, then lifted his eyes to Branham, whose hand still hovered, stunned at himself. Bailiff, Varela said calmly, record that at 10:47 a.m. Officer Trevor Branham assaulted a sitting judge in open court. Note witnesses and cameras. Veteran bailiff Carl Monroe approached, cuffs out. Officer Branham, you're under arrest for assault, contempt, and disrupting judicial proceedings. Branham snapped back to reality. He provoked me. He attacked my character. Your character, Varela said, needed no help revealing itself. Sheriff's deputies surged in, joined unexpectedly by two men in suits. Agent Miguel Martinez, FBI, one said, we're here on another matter, but we witnessed a federal crime, assault on a judicial officer. Branham went white. Federal charges changed the terrain completely. This is a setup, Branham shouted as deputies approached. The whole thing is rigged. You have the right to remain silent, Martinez recited. Branham searched for allies and found only phones and Varela's steady gaze, the bruise darkening by the minute. Your Honor, Willis said into stunned air. I move to dismiss all charges against my client immediately. Granted, Varela replied. Mr. Thompson, you're free to go. The court apologizes. Jalen rose slowly, disbelieving. His mother rushed forward. Both cried with exhausted relief. I'm ordering an immediate review of every arrest Officer Branham made in the past 5 years, Varela continued. Every one. You can't do that, Branham yelled from cuffs. I just did, Varela said, and I'm referring civil rights issues to justice. The agents nodded. We'll be in touch, Your Honor, Martinez added. We've been investigating Branham for 6 months. This helps the case. Reporters vibrated, eager to file. Branham under federal investigation. Another shockwave. He'd believed himself untouchable. The city would learn otherwise. Dragged toward the doors, Branham shouted, This isn't over. You think you won? Put people like you in charge and see what happens. Varela, dignified despite the mark, said, Today shows what happens when you're finally accountable. For a heartbeat, the room froze. Then applause gathered like weather. Improper. Raw. Overdue. Varela raised a hand. This remains a court of law. Maintain decorum. Relief flickered in his eyes. The truth had finally been too loud to bury. Court is adjourned, he said. Williams approached the bench. Are you all right, Judge? I've been slapped by worse, Varela answered, usually metaphorical. What you did took courage. It was my job. Courage belongs to Jalen and his mother. He gathered papers, straightened his robe. Today, the mask slipped, he said softly. The court reporter lifted her machine. Judge Varela, I caught every word, he nodded. Good, I suspect this is only the beginning. Outside, news vans arrived, dishes blooming. On the steps, Jalen and his mother blinked in sudden glare. How do you feel? A reporter asked. Like maybe things can change, Mrs. Thompson said. That judge took a slap for all of us. Inside, federal agents reviewed notes. Branham just made our case easier, Martinez said. 6 months of work, and he gifts us the finale. Not arrogance, he corrected his partner. Entitlement. He truly believed he could slap a judge and walk away untouched. In the holding cell, Trevor Branham sat on a steel bench, head in hands. He'd assaulted a judge on camera. His union rep finally whispered, horrified, I can't help you, Trevor. You're on your own. The video spread everywhere. Your character, Varela said quietly, needed no help exposing itself. The doors burst open, 6 sheriff's deputies and 2 suited men. Agent Miguel Martinez, FBI, one announced. Separate matter, but we just witnessed a federal assault on a judicial officer. Branham's face drained. Federal charges were different terrain, no hometown courtesies. "This is a setup," he yelled as deputies closed. "You all saw it." Martinez read rights calmly. Phones recorded everything: the bruise, the cuffs, the stunned silence becoming history. "Your Honor," Willis called through the shock, "I move to dismiss immediately." "Granted," Varela answered. "Mr. Thompson, you're free. The court apologizes." Jalen rose, disbelief loosening into tears as his mother enveloped him. Relief spilled across pews like a long-delayed sunrise. "I'm ordering a full review of every Branham arrest for 5 years," Varela continued. "Each file." "You can't do that," Branham shouted. "I already did," Varela said, "and I'm referring potential civil rights violations to the Department of Justice immediately." FBI agents nodded, already cataloging evidence. "We've been on Branham 6 months," Martinez told him. "This incident helps." Reporters practically trembled, dialing editors. The revelation detonated through the gallery. Federal investigation, corroborative footage, and a judge who wouldn't flinch even with a purpled cheek. Dragged toward the doors, Branham threw one last shot. "This isn't over. Put people like you in charge, everything breaks." Varela's tone stayed measured. "What breaks is impunity. Accountability doesn't collapse communities, it mends them." The deputies took Branham away, shouts dwindling. Applause rose, raw, improper, overdue, until Varela's palm reclaimed decorum. "This remains a court," he said. Yet relief lived in his eyes. The truth was finally too loud to bury. The cameras, too many. The witnesses, too certain. "Court is adjourned." Willis approached. "Judge, are you all right?" "I've endured worse slaps," Varela said, usually metaphorical. That took courage. "It took a job done properly," he replied. "Courage belongs to Jalen and his mother, standing against the tide." He straightened his robe. Today the mask slipped. The court reporter lifted her machine. "Judge Varela, I captured every word." He nodded. "Good. We'll need them." Outside, vans, satellite dishes blooming. Inside, agents, evidence bags, and the bruise becoming emblematic. On the steps, Jalen and his mother blinked under glare. "How do you feel?" a reporter asked. "Like maybe change is possible," she said. "That judge took a slap for all of us." Upstairs, agents spread notes across a scarred conference table. "Branham just handed us the case," Martinez said. 6 months of work, and he decides to broadcast the finale. His partner, Agent Evan Drake, called it arrogance. "Not arrogance," Martinez corrected. "Entitlement. He truly believed he'd walk away untouched." Downstairs, Branham sat on a steel bench, head in hands. He'd slapped a judge on camera in front of federal agents. His union rep finally whispered, horrified, "Trevor, I can't help you. You assaulted a judge. You're on your own." The clip spread fast, shared, reshared, captioned, dissected. Judge Varela trended beside Chakyar's Officer Branham. The story had legs. But the most consequential development arrived in Varela's chambers when Diane knocked. "Denise Carver is here early. She says you need to see this." He'd ordered a review of every Branham arrest. The patterns darkened with each page. "Send her in." Denise carried grief like weight, training her posture. "Judge," she said, clutching a fat envelope, "my son Miles I'd in custody. They called it suicide. It wasn't. Tell me." Denise sat carefully, as if grief might shatter. 19. Engineering student. Spring break when Branham pulled him over. Broken taillight. We'd serviced the car a week earlier. Miles hit record on his phone immediately. Police said they never found it. She placed a USB on his desk. Automatic cloud backup. Took 8 months to access his account. It's all there. The stop, the station. Varela loaded the video. "It's hard to watch," she warned. The screen filled with Miles's shaking breath and practice caution. Hands on the wheel, he narrated movements. "License in my wallet, registration in glove box. I'm reaching now." Branham's voice, impatient, contemptuous. "Did I ask for a speech? Move." Miles moved slowly. Branham shouted, "Gun!" Chaos, scuffling, metal, pleading. The phone fell, audio continuing. "Please, I'm not resisting. Stop resisting." Minutes stretched, somewhere fluorescent and cruel. Then Miles's voice slurred, confused, frightened. "What did you give me? What was in that needle?" "Something to calm you down," Branham said. Breathing grew wet, desperate, then slowed into heartbreaking quiet. Varela gripped his chair. "My God!" The coroner ruled. "Suicide by overdose," Denise said, tears falling. Internal Affairs called the video inconclusive. The district attorney said insufficient evidence. Everyone looked away. "Yesterday showed me they can't look away anymore." "Diane, get Agent Martinez," Varela said. "Mrs. Carver, with your permission, I'll turn this over to federal authorities. What happened was murder?" She nodded, sobbing. "I've waited 2 years for someone to say that word out loud. Murder. They murdered my boy." Diane forwarded an urgent email from Chief Judge Patricia Hendry. "Malcolm, you need to see the news." On television, Branham's ex-wife, Sarah Branham, stood with attorneys. "For 12 years I lived afraid. What he did on duty, he brought home." 37 incidents, Sarah said, holding a thick folder. Photos, medical records, neighbor statements, never filed. He told me no one would believe me. Yesterday, seeing him strike a judge, I understood. If he'd do that publicly, imagine private nights. Cameras clicked mercilessly. Cut to Jefferson County PD. Chief Daniel Mercer scowled beside flags. "Branham's actions were deplorable and do not reflect our values," he recited. "Don't let one bad actor tarnish hundreds of honorable officers." A reporter shouted, "43 complaints in 12 years. Why still employed?" "All complaints were thoroughly investigated," Mercer said stiffly. "Unsubstantiated. Personnel matters are confidential." "Were you aware of a federal investigation?" Mercer blanched. "No comment. This conference is over." Back in chambers, agents watched Miles's video again, taking notes, building chain of custody immaculate. "This is what we needed," Martinez said grimly. "We knew he was dirty. This proves pattern and method." Varela pulled arrest logs. 17 black males, ages 16 through 24, arrested by Branham within 5 years, dead within weeks. Causes, overdoses, falls, resisting, officer involved. The word pattern felt insufficient. "This isn't brutality," Drake said softly. "It's serial murder, under color of law." Diane poked in again. "Judge, the hallway's full. People say they have information." "Set up Conference B," Varela said. "We'll take statements, recordings, documents, everything." The parade of pain began. Hours unfolded. Maria Santos, husband deported after drugs found, never logged. James Washington, permanently disabled after a jaywalking arrest. Ashley Turner, assaulted during a stop while Branham's partner looked away. Each story documented, time-stamped, notarized where possible, appended to an avalanche of evidence no broom could hide. "We can bury him," Martinez said, surveying boxes. "But it's bigger." Hendry called them upstairs. In her office waited a nervous patrolman and an internal affairs detective. "This is Officer Tyler Rhodes," Hendry said, "and Detective Karen Wallace, IA. They have something urgent." Rhodes swallowed. "Branham's partner for 2 years. I filed reports. They disappeared. Chief Mercer protects him. Personal debt from years back. I kept copies at home." Wallace nodded. "I've investigated a year. Reassigned every time I got close. I kept everything off-site." She set a flash drive down. 13 cases where Mercer personally intervened to shield Branham, including Miles Carver. Denise, still waiting in the hall, stepped inside. "Mercer knew?" Wallace's voice softened. "He didn't just know. He directed interference, intimidation, report edits, lost evidence." The room exhaled disbelief. "We have to move fast," Martinez said. "If Mercer senses exposure, he'll run, or worse." Rhodes glanced at his phone. "The union's holding a rally tonight to support Branham. Carson Park. Mercer's speaking." "Then that's where we'll be," Varela said. Hendry frowned. Danger ahead. You're a target already, she warned. They made me a target when they decided some lives mattered less, Varela replied. Carson Park filled by dusk, blue flags one side, grieving families the other. Chants collided, bullhorns blared, and signs painted hope or defiance, sometimes both at once. Chief Mercer took a makeshift stage, uniform immaculate. We won't let one judge's vendetta destroy the thin blue line, he thundered. Officer Branham has been a hero for 12 years. Cheers rose. Somewhere, someone shouted, He did nothing wrong. The microphone crackled ominously. Varela climbed the side steps, the bruise dark in harsh light. Mercer faltered. Chief, Varela said without amplification, I have 17 questions, one per young man dead after Branham's arrests. Silence rolled across the crowd, like a hush before storm. Even supporters paused. Miles Carver, Varela began steady. 19, engineering student injected with an unknown substance. We have video. Gasps. Mercer paled. Terrell Jones, 17, honors student, fell in custody. Witnesses now say he was shoved. DeAndre Wilkes, 22 father, shot while kneeling. Muzzle imprint contradicts distance claim. With each name, lines shifted. Some blue flag carriers drifted away. Others pushed forward, angry or uncertain. You're inciting violence, Mercer shouted. I'm reciting names, Varela replied. If truth incites violence, what does that say about your department's cultivated lies? Martinez and Drake joined him, badges visible. Career Chief Daniel Mercer, Martinez announced through a megaphone. You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory after the fact to murder. The park erupted. Some officers surged, then hesitated at the federal credentials. Mercer tried to run. Drake intercepted, cuffs flashing silver beneath stadium lights. I protected this city, Mercer snarled. Protected good cops from witch hunts. You protected a murderer, Varela said, loud enough for both crowds. That made you complicit. A chant rose from the victim's side. Miles Carver, then a second name, then a third. 17 names. A cadence of grief. Rhodes stepped onto the stage, removed his badge, and placed it on the podium. I became a cop to protect, he said into the mic. All people, not to cover murders. Another officer followed. Another. A dozen badges glittered like shed armor under floodlights. Detective Wallace read prepared findings, destroyed evidence, intimidated witnesses, orchestrated cover-ups. The crowd's fury grew, but so did a strange, fragile hope. Officers, black, white, Latino, stepped forward, declaring enough. Varela watched, feeling something shift, as if a dam had cracked at last. His phone buzzed. A message from his wife, watching on the news. I'm proud. Be careful. He typed a reply, but a bottle arced overhead. The fronts shoved. The knot tightened. Decades of pain boiling toward a riot no one truly wanted. Stop, Varela shouted into chaos. This is what they count on. Us tearing each other apart so they avoid consequence. The crowd barely heard. Then Mrs. Thompson walked on stage. Beside her, Denise Carver. Then Sarah Branham. Then mothers, wives, sisters, linking arms, forming a human line of refusal. Mrs. Thompson took the mic. My son lives. Others didn't. We've cried oceans. Tonight, we stand. Denise stepped forward. They killed my boy. I want justice, not more funerals. Sarah spoke, voice shaking. He hit me for years. What you saw. Imagine private nights. The crowd softened under raw truth. Even hard-eyed supporters looked down. We're not anti-police, Mrs. Thompson said. We're anti-murder, anti-abuse, anti-corruption. Good cops want this too. Bailiff Carl Monroe climbed up, removed his own badge, and faced his colleagues and neighbors. 20 years protecting this courthouse, he said. We swore to serve all people. Branham and Mercer betrayed that oath. Standing with community is not weakness, it's strength. More officers joined the line, not surrendering, but choosing conscience over code. The air measurably changed. District Attorney Rachel Cho called from the jail. Judge, Branham wants to talk. He'll testify against Mercer and others for consideration. Others? Varela asked. He says it reaches City Hall. Recordings, documents. We'll listen, Varela said. But no immunity. Accountability still applies. The rally eased into a vigil. Names read aloud. Candles ignited. Strangers swapping stories. Martinez approached. We'll need your testimony, Judge. This will be enormous. Federal civil rights, conspiracy, murders. I'll testify, Varela said. But punishment alone won't fix the machine. Systemic reform, Martinez admitted, is above my pay grade. Then I won't stop at the witness chair, Varela said. The crowd thinned toward midnight. Mothers still linked arms. Officers stood beside them, and around the edges, people finally talked instead of shouting. Denise squeezed Varela's hand. Thank you for seeing my son as more than a statistic. I'm sorry it took this long, he said. I'm sorry a slap made people listen. They're listening now, Mrs. Thompson said gently. Under floodlights, the bruise looked almost ceremonial. Threats had already begun. Anonymous calls, snarled messages. But the escort insisted. On the drive home, graffiti flashed. Judge Varela stood by standing firm. Resistance didn't always require shouting. Sometimes it was a refusal to flinch, to keep asking for facts, not fear. A final message buzzed. Judge Varela, Michael Patterson, federal prosecutor. The Attorney General wants to meet. National inquiry into police departments. Your case is the spark. Can you come to D.C.? Yes, he typed. After families, after funerals. We do this right. 3 days blurred. Depositions, evidence review, security briefings. The bruise evolved into mottled yellow and violet, appearing on protest signs with the caption, "The Mark of Truth." On the fourth morning, Varela faced Branham across a federal interrogation table. Orange jumpsuit replaced swagger. Between them sat public defender Alan Hutchins, nervous hands adjusting glasses. My client will cooperate for consideration, Hutchins said. He faces multiple life sentences, Martinez observed from the door. Civil rights violations, assault on a federal judge, conspiracy. Truth, Hutchins insisted, reaches upward. Branham finally met Varela's eyes. You want the real story? That would be refreshing, Varela said. I was a soldier following orders, Branham began. A network, judges, prosecutors, council members, needed someone to clean certain neighborhoods. 17 young men were murdered, Varela said evenly. You call that cleaning? They were criminals, Branham snapped. Would have ended up dead anyway. I accelerated timelines. The room chilled. Even Hutchins recoiled. Say that again, Martinez said, recorder humming. Branham realized he'd stepped off a cliff. I'm not racist, Branham blurted. I have black friends. Name one, Varela said. Silence opened. Here's what happened, Varela continued. You were encouraged, protected. Each buried complaint made you invincible until you thought you could slap a judge and walk away. Mercer said you were a problem, Branham blurted. Said you were asking too many questions. If something happened during trial, if you got provoked, you'd be removed. Stop, Hutchins hissed. So Mercer suggested the assault? Varela asked. Not ordered, suggested, Branham muttered, shrinking. Martinez stepped into the hall, already adding charges. Varela stood. Wait, Branham said, grabbing fabric. Names, dates. Mercer kept an insurance policy. Safety deposit box at First National, Madison Branch, box 447. He keeps everything. Payoffs, cover-ups, directives. We'll get a warrant, Martinez said. In the hallway, Denise waited every day, refusing to be sidelined. Did he admit it? Not directly, Varela said, but we have enough. Your son will get justice. I want every hearing, she said, steady. You will, he promised. The warrant arrived before noon. They opened box 447 before a special master. Inside, recordings, office footage, phone captures, emails, 5 years meticulously cataloged. One video, 6 months old, showed Mercer meeting Mayor Thomas Blackwell, silver-haired champion of order. Jefferson Heights needs clearing, Blackwell said. Property values are suffering. Branham can handle it, Mercer replied. He's done it before. Keep it untraceable. I don't need another federal inquiry. Don't worry, Mercer smiled. He knows how to make problems disappear. They watched it 3 times, the glib calculus, the bureaucratic euphemisms for cruelty. Hendry, brought in for judicial implications, stared at the screen. Tom Blackwell, I've had dinner at his house. Did you know? Varela asked. No, she said, firm, pained. But patterns were there. Odd case assignments, vanishing evidence. I called it incompetence. It was conspiracy. The next morning, cameras carried Blackwell's arrest live. Agents walked him from City Hall in handcuffs. Protesters cheered. Loyalists stared, stunned. The image of a mayor folding into a federal vehicle became the day's second most shared picture. The first remained Varela's bruised, unbowed face. In depositions, tentacles surfaced, contracts steered, neighborhoods reclaimed, complaints neutralized. Prosecutors mapped a flowchart that looked less like government and more like a syndicate. Wallace traced emails that lost evidence. Rhodes corroborated verbal orders. The machine's architecture emerged ugly and undeniable. Meanwhile, statements kept arriving. Teachers, nurses, clerks, small injustices that formed a chorus. He said I fit a description. He laughed when I cried. They called my son a statistic. Each page felt like a stone laid on a growing memorial to silence. Mercy for the guilty wasn't on the table, but mercy for the harmed, resources, counseling, expungements became a priority memo that Varela drafted himself. Punishment without repair leaves the wound open, he wrote. Hendry countersigned. The bench could demand accountability and insist on healing. At night, messages stacked, threats and blessings. He answered only the latter. His wife brewed tea, touched the fading bruise, and didn't ask him to stop. She knew history seldom moved without someone willing to lean into its stubborn hinge. The grand jury convened under bright, relentless lights. Martinez presented the video, the statistics, the patterns, the bodies. Hutchins tried to frame context, but context failed before recordings and timelines. Indictments stacked: conspiracy, civil rights violations, multiple counts of murder under color of law. Sarah testified, chin high. He said Brothers in Blue would protect him forever. Denise testified, voice breaking only once when the audio caught Miles's last breaths. Rhodes testified, badge gone, oath intact. Wallace testified, files rescued from shredders and closets in polite, lethal indifference. The union sputtered, then splintered. Some demanded blind loyalty. Others demanded cleansing. A new slate proposed transparency, community review boards, residency requirements, duty to intervene with teeth. Old guards shouted witch hunt. Younger officers quietly asked for training that treated dignity like armor, not threat. In classrooms, law students argued probable cause and pretext, bias and Bayesian inference, the math and morality of policing. Professors rewrote syllabi overnight. Watch the video, a criminal procedure lecture now began. Now tell me where the law should be, not merely where it is. Branham's plea talks stumbled on his own hubris. He wanted forgiveness without confession, leniency without truth. Martinez held the line. Consideration requires candor, he said, and candor requires responsibility. Varela said nothing publicly, but privately refused to trade accountability for convenience or headlines. In neighborhoods labeled undesirable, murals multiplied, portraits of the 17, candles stubbornly relit by morning. Churches hosted forums, mosques opened basements. The community center became triage for grievances and ideas. Mrs. Thompson brought cookies and tissues. Denise brought resolve. Both brought names no one would let fade. Reporters dug deeper. Budget line items, overtime spikes, sealed settlements. An auditor surfaced patterns, misconduct cases settled quietly before elections, payouts buried under infrastructure consulting. Blackwell's re-election slideshow looked different under fluorescent discovery lights, streets paved over footprints that once had names. Hendry convened a bench meeting. "We cannot be tourists to our own house," she said. Emergency protocols passed, automatic body cam audits, exclusionary sanctions for persistent perjury, independent warrant reviewers. "Neutrality isn't passivity," Varela added. "It's rigor, without fear." Heads nodded, wearily, finally. Defense attorneys petitioned to reopen past convictions touched by Branham. Prosecutors, some reluctant, some relieved, joined. "Justice favors sunlight," Cho told her team. Files came up like bones after rain. Not all showed rot. Enough did to justify the storm that followed. The first reopened hearing crackled with ghosts. A man had pled to escape a cell where Miles had later died. "If I'd known," he whispered, not accusing, just tired. The court vacated his plea. Outside, he hugged strangers who remembered his name. At a candlelight vigil, Varela spoke only once. "Justice delayed is real harm. Justice rushed is betrayal. We will get it right." He stepped back and let mothers speak. The candles flickered like small, stubborn suns, refusing to surrender their little orbits. Branham finally cracked. He named handlers, go-betweens, donors who demanded clean corridors, consultants who monetized fear. He described code words and winked memos. The recorders hummed. Hutchins held his head. Consideration remained minimal. Truth mattered, but so did Miles. So did 17 funerals. Mercer receded from bluster to barter. He offered skeletons, got coffins. His private recordings painted a portrait less of mastermind than of man who mistook cruelty for competence and graft for strategy. Still, the law didn't grade on intention. Consequences arrived right on schedule. Blackwell's attorneys argued policy wasn't conspiracy, redevelopment wasn't genocide. The tapes laughed at their rhetoric. "Make them disappear," the mayor had said. Euphemisms turned to evidence, once translated from boardroom to morgue. Voters watched nightly, learning the vocabulary of evasion the hard, necessary way. In the hall, Denise found Sarah. They talked quietly about apologies that never arrived from the dead and forgiveness that isn't owed. They didn't become friends that night. They became something else. Two women who refused to be defined by one man's violence. Reporters asked Varela if he felt like a symbol. "Symbols are easy," he said. "Processes are hard." He kept grinding, warrants to read, hearings to schedule, dicta to draft that might one day become doctrine. His calendar looked like penance disciplined into purpose. The bruise faded outwardly. The mark it left on policy deepened. A civic group proposed Miles grants for first-generation college students. A startup offered pro bono cloud backups for traffic stops. A barber shop organized Saturday workshops on rights, de-escalation, dignity, and community patrols. In the federal building, Martinez thumbed through transcripts. "We'll push for a pattern or practice investigation statewide," he told Drake. "Then beyond." Drake nodded. "Some doors only open after a crack." Martinez glanced at a still of the slap. "And some truths need thunder." Cho's office changed its training modules, visual lineup reforms, discovery audits, blind charging committees. "We can't prosecute our way out of this," she said, "but we can prosecute honestly inside it." The younger ADAs listened, hungry and scared, which was the right mix. Community leaders created a crisis line for stops gone sideways. Volunteers, retired teachers, nurses, clergy, showed up at 2 a.m. with coffee and notebooks. They took statements, dialed lawyers, hugged witnesses. Somewhere along the line, the word community started sounding less like brochure copy. At home, the kettle hissed. His wife asked nothing, understanding everything. He thought of 19-year-old Miles narrating his last motions like a prayer that might unlock mercy. He wished prayers were keys. He settled for locks that finally required more than a wink. A budget hearing turned into a referendum. Residents demanded auditors with subpoena power, not slogans. We want receipts, a grandmother said, waving her phone. All of them. The council blinked and then bowed. The line between politics and accountability had been redrawn in marker. A school assembly invited Varela. He declined the podium and sat in a circle. Ask anything, he said. A student asked if slaps always start revolutions. No, he said. Most revolutions start long before. The slap just makes everyone finally look. In court, defense counsel moved to suppress Branham's testimony. The judge, someone else's courtroom, denied, citing attenuation and independent corroboration. Outside, someone muttered witch hunt. Someone else said witchcraft was writing off boys as blight. The sun didn't choose a side, it illuminated everything. The first trial opened. Jury selection revealed fault lines and courage. A retired nurse cried during voir dire. A veteran bristled at defund, but loved duty to intervene. 12 citizens and 2 alternates took seats like shoulders braced under an old, heavy roof. Cho's opening was unadorned. Recordings, statistics, timelines, bodies. Hutchins tried weather metaphors and bad apples. The jury watched Miles's video. Some cried. One stared at the ceiling, counting vents to keep from seeing. Truth, when properly assembled, resists rhetorical sanding. On cross, Hutchins asked Denise why she hadn't gone to police. She laughed without humor. I did. They said they couldn't find a phone cloud. The jurors' pens paused. Sometimes the smallest administrative lie is the loudest alarm in the room. Mercer took the stand. Finally, he tried command voice. It sounded like a hollow drum. Wallace's documents contradicted dates. Rhodes contradicted alibis. I didn't know, Mercer insisted. The tapes knew he did. His tie looked too tight. His posture looked 20 years older. The mayor's trial moved separately. Blackwell's smile belonged to billboards, not witness boxes. We needed revitalization, he said. We needed removal, the tape answered. The market had never asked for blood. It had been offered some anyway, packaged as governance, ribboned as renewal. In a hallway recess, Martinez nodded to Varela. When this ends here, it starts elsewhere. Good, Varela said. Machines replicate. So can remedies. He'd become less a symbol than a lever. History, grudgingly, was giving ground one stubborn inch at a time. 3 verdicts landed across 2 months. Mercer, guilty on obstruction, conspiracy, accessory. Branham, guilty on multiple counts, civil rights, murder under color of law, assault on a federal judge. Blackwell, guilty on conspiracy and deprivation of rights. Sentencing dates circled calendars like approaching weather. Outside, the city exhaled without celebrating. Candles at the mural now flickered, beside job fair flyers and counseling schedules. A mother pressed her palm to her son's face in paint. Accountability is not resurrection, she said, to no one in particular, to everyone. In the weeks after, Varela's docket overflowed with reopened cases. He moved carefully, case by case, principle by principle. The law could bruise too. He tried to make his rulings salve where possible, stitches where necessary, and scalpel when infection demanded it. At a community forum, a teenager asked if he trusted police again. I trust individuals who earn it, he said, and systems that prove it daily. The room didn't clap, it nodded. Quiet, complicated affirmation more honest than applause could manage. Drake accepted a reassignment, pattern or practice unit scaling statewide. Martinez stayed on Jefferson's cases until the last affidavit was notarized. No incomplete bridges, he said. We land on the far bank. He'd learned justice wasn't a sprint. It was a relay with stubborn batons. Branham's sentencing filled to capacity. Denise read her statement clear-eyed. You told yourself timelines, not lives. My son had timelines too. Graduation, patents, Sunday dinners, you took them. Sarah spoke next. I believed I was alone. I wasn't. That saved me. Mercer tried remorse. It came out managerial. The judge listened, then spoke with the kind of care people mistake for softness. It wasn't soft, it was exact. The sentence balanced arithmetic and ethics, then tipped decisively toward a future safer than yesterday. After Varela walked home beneath ordinary stars, the porch light was a steady, unremarkable glow. He thought about small, durable things: tea kettles, notebooks, neighbors who wave. Revolutions survive on those too, he decided. Fire needs kindling, but it also needs a hearth. In DC, the Attorney General convened a task force, policies cross-stitched with teeth, independent prosecutors for police crimes, national decertification lists, federal funding tied to transparency. We'll be called heavy-handed, she said. Better that than light-fingered around the Constitution. Heads around the table agreed. Michael Patterson asked Varela to testify. He described the day, the slap, the stillness, the decision to keep asking for facts. He didn't give speeches, he gave sequences. People later called it moving. He called it minutes, sworn and transcribed. Back home, a child tugged his sleeve outside a grocery. "Thank you," the boy whispered, then ran. Varela stood in the parking lot longer than necessary, remembering Miles narrating his hands, Denise's envelope, Sarah's folder, the bruise that accidentally taught civics, the city budget codified reforms, audits, public dashboards, resident oversight. A cavalry of accountants replaced cavalry of cruisers in neighborhoods that needed parks, not patrols. Spreadsheets aren't sexy, Martinez joked. They keep promises, Varela said. Sometimes accountability looks like columns finally balancing. A journalist asked what justice looked like now. Less spectacle, he said, more structure. She wanted a quote about heroism. He gave her one about duty. The paper still ran a headline with thunder. Inside, the article listed policies like a recipe. On a quiet Sunday, he visited the mural alone. 17 faces watched the block. He read each name out loud. The wind moved. A passerby joined in without asking why. They finished together, then went separate ways, carrying syllables like stones. A training academy invited Denise to speak. She brought the USB but didn't play it. She told stories instead. Miles's builder, brother, son. Recruits cried. "We can shape culture," the commander said afterward. "Start by hiring for humility," she answered. "Promote it too." Hendry retired that winter, not in defeat, but with a note on the courthouse wall. Neutral is not numb. Varela became chief judge reluctantly. He reorganized calendars first. Justice hates waiting rooms. He bought more benches anyway. People need places to sit. The Jefferson Heights project was redesigned with community input, actual input, not staged town halls. Affordable units stayed affordable. A playground took the place of a fence. A plaque read, "We build for everyone, or we don't build." People stopped, read, argued, improved it. The bruise vanished from his skin, but lived on murals and memories. He kept the broken gavel in a drawer as reminder. A tool can snap. The hand must not. He touched it once before leaving for court, then closed the drawer gently. Outside, the courthouse glowed the same as ever, indifferent limestone, unblinking windows. Inside, filing cabinets, databases, sealed records had started opening. The wheels were turning, slow, grinding, deliberate. Not because of a slap alone, he thought, but because enough hands kept them moving. The arrests were only the opening salvo. Every detainee named more names, more threads. Councilman Richard Hayes allegedly sicked cops on residents refusing developers buyouts, clearing blocks house by house for speculative projects. Judge William Thorne reportedly massaged sentences for select defendants, funneling payoffs to offshore shells. Assistant DA Mike Reeves allegedly slow-walked and tanked brutality cases. Corruption laced every office in Jefferson County's power grid. Within a week, 43 officials were either cuffed or under federal scrutiny. The edifice buckled, taking decades of managed oppression with it. In chambers, Judge Marcus Varela met the incoming federal team. Lead counsel Samantha Rodriguez, battle hardened on civil rights prosecutions, spread files across his desk. We'll need testimony in at least 15 trials, she said. That assault unlocked everything. Without a public, indisputable blow, the dam doesn't break. It shouldn't take a slap, Varela answered. 17 boys died first. You're right, Rodriguez said. Now, we must translate attention into precedent, oversight with teeth nationwide. Families come first, but we must future-proof harm. Settlements were already brewing, insurers circling. Money won't resurrect, Varela said. Accountability might prevent repeats. That evening, he attended the first of 17 memorials, this one for Miles Carver, at the Baptist church where Miles was baptized. Packed pews, standing room, a hum of grief and resolve. Denise Carver found Varela and led him forward. This man stood when others sat, she told congregants. He turned a blow into a trumpet. Reverend James Michel, 40 years in the pulpit, spoke softly. I've buried too many sons who should have walked stages, not aisles like these. Yet hope pressed through every lament, like light through stained glass. Friends remembered Miles, his love for calculus, awful puns, sketches of bridges. A professor announced a scholarship in his name. An old sweetheart sang his favorite hymn, voice trembling, steadying, rising, filling the rafters. At the pulpit, Varela looked over hundreds, faces holding grief and stubborn hope. I never met Miles, he began, but I know him through your stories, the footage, the space his absence carved. He died because someone in uniform graded his worth lower. Others swore oaths, then protected that lie. He touched his still yellowed cheek. 5 days ago, a cop slapped me believing rank beats law. He was wrong, and he revealed what Miles faced when there were no cameras. The violence that marked me is the violence that killed him. I lived. Miles didn't. That's right, someone called. Miles didn't build bridges, Varela said, but his death built one toward justice. The congregation rose, not celebrating, but acknowledging truth spoken aloud. Afterward, a line formed. Stories poured out like rain. Outside, cameras waited. An aggressive reporter pushed forward. Judge, critics say witch hunt, overreach. Varela faced the lens. 17 dead isn't a witch hunt. 43 corrupt officials isn't overreach. It's overdue accountability. What about morale? Officers are resigning. Good, Varela said flatly. If resignations stem from losing impunity, they're welcome. We need officers who treat accountability as part of duty, not an insult. Morning brought shockwaves. DOJ announced sweeping reviews in 5 states, citing Jefferson County as signal flare. Attorney General Patricia Hayes, no relation, unveiled a task force to confront entrenched trans-jurisdictional misconduct. Jefferson isn't an outlier, she said. It's an MRI of a national illness. The blue wall falls now. Protests bloomed, some cheering intervention, others decrying federal reach. The union demanded a no-confidence vote. Community coalitions shouted for disband and rebuild. Varela became a national lightning rod. Death threats, thank yous, invitations, book deals. He declined the noise and prepared for trials. Strategically, the state started with Branham. Defense sought a venue change, arguing the slap poisoned the well, denied. 3 weeks later, prelims opened under a security cordon, metal detectors, FBI posted, overflow rooms full, gallery cameras blinking like constellations. Branham's previous counsel withdrew. Conflicts. Enter Jonathan Sterling, celebrity defender for controversial clients. He framed Branham as a scapegoat, a working cop sacrificed to shield the real architects upstairs. He followed orders, Sterling declared. He was a tool wielded by officials now disowning their handiwork. Rodriguez was ready. He wasn't following orders when he jabbed Miles with ketamine, shoved Terrell, shot DeAndre. The case unspooled. Videos, logs, forensics, testimony, each bead locking into a damning chain. When Denise identified her son's voice, several jurors wept. The crescendo arrived with Chief Mercer's shackled entrance. Mercer had cut a deal. Branham was my responsibility, he whispered. I encouraged, protected, weaponized him. Why? Because power wanted problems solved. Mayor, council, developers. He cleared zones, eliminated trouble. I told myself it served safety. I was wrong, coward and criminal. On cross, Sterling probed. You're saving yourself. Mercer steadied. I'm telling the truth, Judge Varela demanded. All of it, Sterling pushed. Self-preserving lies. Mercer shook his head. There are recordings, emails, logs. Branham killed, I abetted. Prison fits us both. Character witnesses followed. Commendations, charity, youth programs, hollowed by evidence's weight. Against advice, Branham testified. I was a good cop 12 years, he told jurors. Every stop could kill you. Sterling led gently. Pressures? Branham ranted about war zones and endless threats, including unarmed teenagers checking phones. Rodriguez cut in. Objection. Sustained. But the damage stuck like burrs. On cross, Rodriguez sliced. Afraid when you injected a handcuffed, unconscious 19-year-old? He was resisting. The video shows him out cold. How does unconscious resist? You weren't there. The video was. Play it again? Branham cracked. They're all threats. The jury recoiled collectively. Every single one of who? Rodriguez pressed. Say it. Silence strangled the room. He didn't speak. The void said enough. That evening, Varela slumped in chambers, exhausted and restless. A knock. Officer Tyler Rhodes. Judge, I'm not quitting, he said. They'd love that. Good cops leaving. We're staying to rebuild, right? He slid a folder. 37 signatures. Officers for accountability. Reforms from inside. Non-switchable body cams. Civilian boards with real teeth. Mandatory use of force reporting. Varela scanned names. You'll face blowback. Already do. You showed another way. You didn't swing back. After he left, Varela stared at lights. The city was molting, awkward, painful, real. His phone hummed. Coming home? His wife asked. Closings tomorrow, he said. She worried aloud. Cornered people are dangerous. 17 families need me steady, he answered. Late, he finally left. Outside, a candle line waited. Families, neighbors, even uniforms. Silent vigil, photos lifted. Hands brushed his sleeve. Thank you, they whispered. At the end stood Jalen Thompson. He held a candle for Miles, a boy he never knew, whose death bought his freedom. Judge, Jalen said, I want law. Like Mr. Willis, like you. Hard path, Varela said. Systems protect themselves. You changed it, Jalen replied. We changed it, Varela corrected. Driving home, he cataloged transformations. Mothers refusing lies, a partner breaking silence, a community standing shoulder to shoulder, a slap ripping masks off. Tomorrow promised more testimony, pain, revelation. But something foundational shifted. Fear's jaw loosened. Power that felt immovable showed cracks. Justice, for once, looked like a practice, not a slogan. On his street, porch lights flickered into constellations. Neighbors he barely knew held candles. Mrs. Chen started it, his wife said, so you know you're not alone. He watched the speckled glow. Tomorrow likely brought a conviction, Mercer's sentence, the mayor's turn, institutional reinvention by necessity. Tonight, victory looked smaller, neighbors insisting on seeing one another, and somehow larger than any verdict's clang. Morning of closings arrived with a brittle frost. In the mirror, only a lemon shadow lingered. Me released all 17, his wife said. Real autopsies confirm. No suicides, no accidents. 17 funerals, he murmured. All of them, she said. Outside, the largest crowd yet. National vans rimmed the courthouse. Federal security replaced local. Reminders that local trust was spent. In courtroom 7, visiting Judge Elise Conrad, small, fierce, held the room without theatrics. Sterling rose, expensive cloth barely concealing fatigue. Defending Branham had sandpapered his reputation and sleep in equal measure. Remember context, Sterling told jurors. A system trained, conditioned, protected him until it sacrificed him. Mercer ordered. Blackwell schemed. Quotas and clean zones came from on high. He was a weapon. He held a commendation photo. 12 years praised, then suddenly a monster? Does that cohere? Denise's scoff rippled before Conrad's palm restored quiet. Sterling surprised. My client isn't innocent. He hurt people, but you must weigh the diseased system that produced him. The ketamine, supplied, injection protocol, trained, cover up, policy. Yet only one man sits here today. He nodded at the slap photo. Inexcusable, yes, but a man abandoned, cornered, lashed out. Objection, equating momentary rage with serial murder, Rodriguez said. Sustained, Conrad answered. Sterling regrouped and landed softly. When you deliberate, ask weapon or wielder, soldier or general. Justice seeks whole truth. He sat. Rodriguez stood, gravity following. She laid 17 photos along the rail. Smiles, uniforms, toddlers, trumpets. Here's context, she said. 17 families without sons. No crimes, just existing while black in Branham's patrol zone. He chose every day. Ketamine to a cuffed boy. A shove. A shot. Following orders died at Nuremberg, she continued. Oaths bind officers to protection, not hunting. Commendations from criminals aren't honors. They're receipts. She held Varela's bruise photo. The slap revealed his core. A man who believed a badge outranks law, who meets questions with hands, who decides which lives merit breath. She met each juror's eyes. Say no. No to impunity masquerading as courage. Oh, 17 voices demand justice, she said, palms on photos. Find him guilty, not because systems failed, but because he chose murder. The room breathed only in quiet sobs from clustered families. The jury filed out. Hours stretched, chants outside faintly ghosting marble. Varela sat in the gallery, witness, not judge. Beside him, Chief Judge Hendry's composure hid trembling hands. Judges across the county waited, wondering if justice would hold or habit would reassert itself. 6 hours later, the clerk's light blinked. The building inhaled, stood, and remembered how to sit. Sterling steadied his client as deputies brought Branham in, pale, shorn of swagger. The foreman stood, middle-aged black man. We have a verdict. Conrad's voice was marrow calm. Proceed. Count 1, murder of Miles Carver, guilty. The word told. Denise crumpled into her sister's arms, sobbing relief. Count 2, murder of Terrell Jones, guilty. Count 3, murder of DeAndre Wilkes, guilty. Through all 17 names, guilty, 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 validation rang. Assault on a federal judge, guilty. Conspiracy to violate civil rights, guilty. 43 counts total. Branham sat stunned, future measured in steel. Sentencing next week, but the arithmetic seemed foregone. Life stacked upon life. Deputies let him out. He didn't look back. Outside, the crowd erupted. More catharsis than celebration. 17 names braided into one chant. On the steps, mics thrust toward Varela. Denise reached first. My son is still gone, she said, voice steady. This verdict says his life mattered. He was not a statistic. Families followed. Terrell's mother, DeAndre's widow. Truths offered without vengeance, demanding change beyond punishment. Let no other mother stand here, Terrell's mother said. Verdicts start the work, not finish it. Then the unexpected. Jefferson officers arrived in support. Rhodes led nearly 50 from officers for accountability. We're here to apologize. Truly, he said. We let killers wear our uniform. That ends now. He raised his badge. This should mean protection, not predation. We stand with community. Officers, young, veteran, black, white, spoke, shedding old code for new covenant. People listened because action accompanied words. Interim Mayor Diane Foster, newly appointed, promised power with teeth, a civilian oversight board able to fire, investigate, prosecute. The crowd's hope was cautious, earned, and measured against long history. Back upstairs, Varela, Rodriguez, and Martinez mapped implications. More trials queued. Mercer, Blackwell, and dozens. Appeals will fly, Rodriguez warned. Let them, Varela said. Evidence is a wall. The verdict stands. DOJ wanted to widen its lens. 5 more cities with similar signatures. Then it meant something, Varela whispered. 17 deaths finally meant something. They always did, Martinez said. Now they carry consequences. A knock, Diane ushered in Sarah Branham. Judge, thank you, she said, shaking. For 12 years, no one believed me. She handed an envelope, letters from police spouses living with abuse, ready to testify. 37 so far across 6 departments, she said. Rodriguez's mind leapt ahead. We'll need a special prosecutor. This crosses civil rights into systemic domestic violence enabled by institutions. Sarah nodded. We're ready. After she left, the weight settled. Branham's conviction wasn't an end, it cracked a dam. Varela's phone buzzed. Come home, his wife said. There's something you should see. Streets felt different. Looser shoulders, slower sirens. At home, a special report rolled, the slap heard around the world. A montage showed nationwide contempt toward courts, now surfacing because one judge didn't flinch. You started something, his wife said, squeezing his hand. I didn't start anything, he said. Branham did. Families insisted. I just refused to back away when hit. Sometimes that's enough. The phone rang. Jalen. Judge, I got in state pre-law, full ride. They loved my essay about your courtroom. You'll make a fine lawyer, Varela said. Be better than me. Justice shouldn't require a slap to become visible, he added. Make it visible daily. Every case, every person. After he stood on the porch, feeling the city breathe differently. Sentencing neared. Appeals loomed. Other trials stacked like storm fronts. Tonight pride found him, not in himself, but in mothers, brave officers, and kids like Jalen, seeing futures worth defending. The bruise faded to memory, its impact branded practice. Officers contemplating lines now pictured Branham's shackles. Judges felt authority braided with duty. Citizens believed voices mattered when courage synchronized. He named the 17 in his head, Miles with bridges, Terrell with trumpet, DeAndre with toddlers, lives cut short by order worshipped above justice. Their absence insisted on architecture, not rhetoric. The slap reverberated outward, waking a drowsy nation, unmasking comfortable lies, demanding consequence. In distant prisons, corrupt officers were booked. In departments, new policies inked. In neighborhoods, voices lifted. Varela knew beginnings from victories. Real change is years, setbacks, attempts to roll clocks back. But something tectonic shifted. An intimidation meant to silence instead amplified truth. It taught him justice isn't a destination, it's directional. Jefferson County, after 17 deaths and 1 slap, finally turned its feet toward the right road and started walking. Sentencing day poured rain, rinsing old dust from streets. In the mirror, no bruise left, yet photographers still angled for ghosts. Judge Conrad invited Varela's impact statement, unusual, but everything here was. The gallery no longer segregated, officers beside activists, families beside reformers. Branham shuffled in, orange loose, eyes down, chains quiet. Conrad opened. United States versus Branham. Sentencing on murder and civil rights violations. Rodriguez recommended 17 consecutive life terms plus 50 years, math symbolic, meaning emphatic. Sterling pled for concurrent time, invoking systemic rot without absolving harm. Then 3 hours of grief became words. Denise described bridges Miles would never draw. Terrell's mother set a trumpet on the stand, a silence louder than music. DeAndre's widow brought their children, faces jurors had seen in photos. Even Sterling blinked tears as a grandmother recalled identifying a grandson. Varela approached last, a victim who still breathed. I'm alive, he said. 17 aren't. My assault was seen immediately. Theirs happened in shadow, denied and buried. He faced Branham. When you struck me, you showed the world what they endured unseen. Violence from someone convinced a badge is armor against law. He unfolded paper. Miles wrote, Bridges connect people. They're acts of hope. He never built his. His death compelled one between community and justice. It's not worth his life, nothing is, but it's what remains. You didn't just murder 17, Varela finished. You murdered trust, faith that law protects everyone. The sentence must reckon with lives taken and the wound inflicted on justice itself. Branham surprised the room. I want to speak. Sterling tried to stop him. He refused. Shackles clinked to the podium. He stared at rows of families and finally let words fall. I told myself they were criminals. I told myself war. 3 weeks in a cell, I saw faces, kids, some of them. I watched Miles's whole video. He did everything right. I killed him because I could and expected impunity. Gasps rippled. I won't ask forgiveness. It's meaningless weighed against 17 lives, but I'll say their names. He recited, adding details learned at trial. Tears, unrehearsed, unguarded, finally reached his eyes. I wanted heroism and became a monster. People knew, Mercer, Mayer, others, and let me keep going because I was useful. They were human. I treated them as less. I can't undo, but I can testify. Names, methods, burial sites. No deal. I know I'll die in prison. Maybe truth stops the next me. Conrad recessed briefly. Murmurs churned. If he's real, this goes national, Martinez whispered to Varela. You believe him. I believe reckoning loosens tongues, Varela said. Court reconvened. Rodriguez announced full cooperation, without concessions. Truth traded for nothing but possibility. Conrad sentenced. Life without parole on each murder, consecutive. 50 additional years for assault and civil rights counts, consecutive. You will never again walk free among citizens you terrorized. The gavel sounded like granite. Branham nodded, something like relief. At the bar, he turned. My apology doesn't matter, he said. Truth might. Denise stood. You're right. Let truth save a life. That would honor Miles. Weeks later, his cooperation ignited the largest policing corruption probe in memory. 47 officers across 9 states arrested. Outside, families prayed for healing and repair, not vengeance, a stubborn, necessary kind of courage. Mayor Foster announced reforms, mandatory retraining in civil rights and de-escalation, a civilian board with prosecution power, a living memorial turned community center. Rhodes, now lieutenant, launched whistleblower protections. The wall falls now. Walking with Hendry, Varela shrugged the symbol label. What now? She asked. My job, he said. Traffic dockets, custody, small claims, daily justice that should have prevented this if attended. She mentioned a federal shortlist. Bench in D.C., even Supreme Court someday. He stopped. I belong here. Works here. That night, the first community dinner assembled cops, residents, activists, awkward, hushed, then gradually honest. Officer Alex Ruiz explained why he pinned on a badge to guard the block that raised him. A young man described being stopped nightly walking home from work. They found overlap, safety with dignity. Sarah Branham came. Facing mothers, she feared. I should have spoken sooner, she told Denise. I was scared. We all were, Denise said, taking her hand. We aren't anymore. The dinners grew. Foot patrols replaced windshield policing. Residents attended trainings. Disagreements flared, cooled, resumed. Progress showed. Messy, incremental, real. 3 months later, Courtroom 7 hosted something new, an officer testifying against his partner. Daniel Kim said, "I couldn't stay silent." His partner was convicted. 5 years. Kim's stand galvanized others. Culture shifted. Still fragile, increasingly brave. One afternoon, Jalen appeared in chambers, arms full of charts. "I've mapped arrest and charging patterns across counties," he said. "There's a signature 3 other places." Varela reviewed, careful, persuasive. He called Martinez. Investigations opened within days. A student paper became policy scaffolding. 6 months after the slap, Congress invited Varela. He sat before judiciary, cheek healed, memory raw. "That slap woke the country," he said. "We cannot let awakening drift back to sleep." He spoke 2 hours. Oversight, auditing discovery, duty to intervene, residency, training built for dignity, not dominance. The testimony helped pass the most sweeping police reform bill in a generation. A year on, 17 families dedicated the Miles Carver Memorial Center, built atop a shuttered precinct. Tutoring, jobs, legal aid, safe gathering space, walls lined with stories of lives lived, not merely lost. Denise cut the ribbon. "Our sons were taken," she said, "but their hopes live here." In the first room, a sculpture, an open hand, welcoming, not striking. The plaque honored courage and refusal. Varela spoke. "A year ago, visible violence revealed hidden violence. That is our shame. From shame, we shaped accountability and hope. That is our redemption." In back, an elderly woman wept. She was Branham's mother. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I raised him better. I failed." "Systems groomed and shielded him," Varela said. She knelt before Denise. "Forgive me. Forgive my son." Denise lifted her. "I can't forgive him. Maybe not ever. But you're not him. We're mothers carrying different grief." They held each other. Around them, kids of every shade poured inside. Later, Varela passed. Courtroom 7 paused. The echo mattered less than the aftermath. The standing, speaking, refusal to trade truth for quiet. His wife texted, "Proud. Dinner?" He typed, "On my way." Driving through Jefferson, he saw officers shooting hoops with kids, murals co-painted by cops and teens. Officers for Accountability hung from a precinct, the memorial center humming like a new artery. Imperfect, still tense in places, but fundamentally changed. A blow meant to muzzle had given voice. Power meant to preserve itself was forced to protect everyone. Direction replaced destination in their vocabulary. On his block, kids chased soccer balls. Neighbors lingered in doorways. "Grandson's joining the academy," Mrs. Chen called. "Wants to be the kind of officer who guards everyone." "We need him," Varela said. Inside, they ate quietly, weathered silence settling like a favorite blanket. "Do you regret not hitting back?" she asked. "No," he said. "Swinging would have centered me. Restraint centered the injured. It took faith, not naivete, faith that truth could outlast force, that community was ready to change." That night, the center glowed. Kids studying, plotting futures they once considered myth. In federal prisons, corrupt officers faced their files. At academies, recruits studied the Varela incident, cautionary tale, an invitation to real service. At home, the judge finally slept without the courtroom in his jaw. Hatred struck him. He answered with law. Corruption lunged. He answered with accountability. Violence demanded escalation. He offered steadiness. The slap became a syllabus. Dignity withstands. Truth untangles. Justice insists. Tomorrow would bring fresh dockets and new frictions testing reforms. Tonight, Jefferson County held one truth gently. 17 young men had not died nameless. Their names rerouted a city's bloodstream. Justice without parades. Only the persistent labor of making tomorrow kinder than yesterday, case by case, corner by corner, decision by decision, courage passing hand to hand like a well-kept flame. In the weeks ahead, Appellate briefs materialized and withered against transcripts that wouldn't bend. Training modules updated again, embedding scenario work where de-escalation wasn't a buzzword, but muscle memory. The Oversight Board held its first public hearing. Televised, translated, tense. A retired officer admitted he'd once looked away. "No more," he said. The room didn't clap. It nodded, then set deadlines. A neighborhood watch reimagined itself as a welcome committee. Fresh fruit baskets, resource lists, courtyard movie nights where patrol officers brought folding chairs and stayed after to help stack them. A local paper began a "How We're Doing" dashboard. Stops, complaints, outcomes, numbers that belong to everyone. The city's budget read like values again, not camouflage. People memorized line items like hymns. A mother returned to court to watch a dismissed case become an apology on record. Tears didn't fall then. They rose later, at a playground ribbon cut by toddlers wearing paper badges. Lawyers taught Saturday clinics, expungements, tenant rights, FOIA basics. Off-duty officers volunteered. One kid asked if justice was always this slow. "No," a public defender said. "Sometimes it's slower. We walk anyway." A muralist added an 18th panel, an empty outline with space beneath for chalk names of neighbors who helped. By month's end, the outline overflowed. People saw themselves in the wall. The radio host who'd mocked the reforms hosted a mother on air, then went silent and let her finish uninterrupted. Listeners called to argue, cry, and volunteer. The board's hotline rang nonstop. A teacher paused roll call to explain consent decrees. A pastor replaced one sermon with a town hall about budgets. A coach turned a practice into a clinic on safe stops. The unions split, one doubling down on grievance, another organizing for service. Younger officers ran for union leadership on platforms of transparency, lateral accountability, mental health, and residency. They won narrowly. Varela's docket returned to ordinary. Traffic, custody, small claims. But filings read different. People believed written words might stick. He ruled like a mason places bricks, remembering the weight under monuments. He kept the shattered gavel in a drawer, not as trophy, as warning. Tools break, principles don't. Before court each morning, he touched the splintered wood, then closed the drawer gently. Denise dropped off a box of applications. Miles Carver Scholars, first cohort. Photos grinned back. Coders, welders, a poet. "Bridges," she said. "Lots of them." He laughed through sudden startled tears. On a rainy Thursday, a recruit class visited the memorial before badge pinning. One lingered longest by the open-hand sculpture. "I want to be that," she said. Her mother squeezed her shoulder. A yearbook page captured Varela in the background of a neighborhood picnic, carrying folding tables. No caption. Perfect. He preferred stories where the work showed, and the worker didn't. A regional conference on oversight asked him to keynote. He instead moderated a panel: mother, officer, public defender, teenager. They disagreed respectfully, then made a checklist. Delegates took photos of the checklist. A barber shop held a debate: defense attorneys versus detectives, over who owed who first call. They settled on "the person harmed," wrote it on a chalkboard, then got back to fades. A choir turned the 17 names into a refrain. The audience stood each time, as if to carry the syllables physically, so they wouldn't be forgotten on the walk home. Mayor Foster signed a transparency ordinance while kids pressed their noses to the glass. "It's their city," she told staff. "Plan like you'll have to explain everything to fourth graders." Hendry retired, leaving a note on the bench. "Neutral is not numb." Varela reorganized calendars. "Justice hates waiting rooms," he'd said. He authorized more benches anyway. People need places to sit. The Attorney General toured the memorial, then the oversight office, then a roll call. "Keep the receipts," she said. "Make the receipts public." Everyone laughed, then wrote public receipts on whiteboards. A film student stitched footage into a short called After the Echo. It didn't end on the slap. It ended on porch lights and forms signed, meetings adjourned with to-do lists. Two officers argued on a corner, one about a shortcut, the other about policy. The policy won. The shortcut apologized. The person they were helping noticed, and trust nudged forward. Jamal's paper became a statewide pilot. He visited 3 counties, wearing out notebooks and shoes. "You're relentless," a sheriff said. 17 reasons, Jamal answered. The sheriff opened his records. A juror from Branham's trial mailed Varela a postcard. Cornfield's big sky. "I still hear the names," it read. "I treat people different at the grocery now. That feels like something." A developer approached the council proposing revitalization. The chamber asked for displacement plans, wage guarantees, a community board veto. The developer blinked, recalculated, and came back with something closer to decent. A security guard stopped Varela with a photo of his son in academy blues. "He read your testimony," the guard said. "He wants to finish what you started." "Start better," Varela said. The oversight board's first prosecution landed. An off-duty assault caught on camera. Conviction followed. The officer wrote from jail asking to speak at recruit orientation about choices. They scheduled him in. A newspaper editorial apologized for years of both sidesing brutality. "We mistook balance for blindness," it read. People cut it out, taped it to fridges, and kept a ledger of follow-through. A data dashboard pinged. Stops trending down. Clearance rates holding. Complaints investigated within deadlines. Success looked like decimals, footnotes, boring graphs. The city cheered anyway, quietly, on porches, with pie. Denise visited court with a box of kites for the center's rooftop. "Kids need sky," she said. "And strings," Varela added. "That too." They grinned at the small theology. Congress revisited the statute named for miles. The amendments sharpened audits and closed loopholes. An old opponent voted aye, explaining, "My grandson asked me why I'd block bridges." The center's tutoring list spilled into the hallway. A kid whispered to a volunteer, "I thought police only did bad things." The volunteer pointed to a uniform mopping juice. "People can change." Varela replaced a courthouse water cooler after realizing the hallway bench became a confessional. He placed a note: "Talk to each other, drink water, then file your motions." People actually did. A pastor officiated a wedding where the recessional was "A change is gonna come." The couple registered for donations to the center. Guests who'd never been inside set up chessboards. The center hosted a Know Your Neighbor night. Languages layered, food shared. A cop learned to say good evening in Vietnamese correctly. Mrs. Chen handed him a bag of lychee candy. A first-grade class mailed drawings of bridges taller than cranes. Varela taped one to his door, a rainbow arch labeled "For Everyone." He kept catching himself smiling, even during arraignments. A teenager asked if justice ever ends. "It never ends," Varela said, "but it keeps beginning." The kid nodded like he understood and went to stack chairs without being asked. A city bus driver stopped to hug Denise at a red light. Cars waited. No horns. When the light turned green, everyone waved. The moment felt implausible and absolutely earned. Varela walked home past courtroom 7 one evening and listened. Silence where a crack once thundered, then footsteps, then laughter, somewhere down the hall. He decided those were the right acoustics. At a youth forum, a girl asked, "What if the slap never happened?" "Then we'd still owe this work," he said. "But sometimes history needs a jolt to wake up." The board denied a favored contractor and lived. The council released recordings proactively. The chief published discipline stats monthly. Routine bravery multiplied until people stopped calling it brave. A candlelight vigil retired itself, replaced by a scholarship banquet. Names that once broke voices now earned rounds of applause. The applause sounded like rain on a clean street. At his desk, Varela wrote a ruling nobody would frame, which is exactly how rulings should be. It made a quiet life easier for someone who had been ignored. A reporter asked if he missed anonymity. "I was never anonymous," he said. "I was a judge. People's lives noticed me. I'm trying to notice them back on purpose." Before bed, he stood at the window. Porch lights twinkled like soft punctuation. He thought of the open hand sculpture, greeting instead of strike, and let his shoulders finally unclench. Across the country, task forces used Jefferson as template. Some pushed back, others leaned in. Results varied, but this time oversight had maps and stories, not just slogans and scoldings. He dreamed of bridges, some complete, some scaffolding, across rivers, alleys, misunderstandings. Morning would ask for more bolts. He had a pen, a docket, neighbors with flashlights. It felt like enough. Jefferson slept. The memorial glowed. Files opened without subterfuge. People kept receipts. Officers kept promises. Kids kept pencils sharp. The wheel turned, slow, grinding, deliberate, because enough hands wouldn't let it stall. Justice didn't descend. It rose, street by street, bench by bench, after 17 funerals and one unflinching stillness. The echo that started as a slap became footsteps, unglamorous and unstoppable, carrying Jefferson forward together. Lesson 1. Dignity stands its ground. Many of us remember grainy TV footage from the 60s when a calm voice could steady a crowd. Judge Varela did the same. One open-handed slap echoed through courtroom 7, but his stillness carried farther. He insisted on facts, names, dates, tapes, and the room, then the city, had to listen. For those of us who've waited in church basements and town halls, this felt familiar. Dignity, held steady, can outlast noise. Lesson 2. Repair takes all of us. Change didn't arrive by siren, it walked in on tired feet. Mothers with envelopes, officers with conscience, neighbors with notebooks. Files opened, patterns surfaced, power answered. Justice wasn't a parade, it was porch light work, policies posted, receipts kept, promises checked monthly. Older Americans know this rhythm. You fix a nation like you fix a fence, post by post, with neighbors watching, measuring twice, and refusing to cut corners. Friends, after hearing this story, what does real accountability look like where you live? Is it tougher training, true civilian oversight, or officers rewarded for de-escalation, not ticket counts? If you marched once, would you mentor now? If you wore a badge, what reform would you champion first? Share your perspective in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you don't miss future stories, tools, and weekly checklists for making safer, fairer neighborhoods. Your voice might spark the next good change.